Man, it's sad that it is halfway because it's still just a bunch of questions. And I said previously that I think that we're not going to end the season with answers. It's not going to be like Discovery. I think this is going to go over many arcs and many seasons. That this one story is going to be told at least for 2, because there's no way they can finish it in 5.
I don't know. They might. They just might not answer any questions. You know, this makes me appreciate the old style of Star Trek storytelling, honestly. Because, like, you know, I didn't like this episode, right? But in old Star Trek, it's like, all right, well, next week's a whole new thing. So who knows, right? And that's what keeps you watching, because you go from great episodes to terrible episodes, and then some that are in the middle, and you never know what you're going to get, right? And that's a strength. And also, it's much more fulfilling watching experience to here is a story, here's a beginning, middle, and end of this story. And then you move on to the next story. With this, these are all just pieces of a greater story. And like, oh, well, it'll all make sense when you watch them all together. I'm like, well, I'm not watching them all together. I'm watching them week to week right now. And if you keep this crap up, I might... I'm not going to stop watching because it's Star Trek.
Right.
Okay? But, like, I'm not looking forward to it the way I wanted to be honest. Like, that's where I am. Because it's so weird that we're halfway through, but everything is moving so slow. Right? Doesn't it feel slow to you? Like, yeah. I made a comparison. Star Trek 3, my favorite Star Trek movie. I try to mention that that's the case every time I podcast. But you know what? Starfleet tells Kirk, no, you're not giving you a ship. No, you're sorry. So what does he do? You know, he gets his crew together and they steal the Enterprise and they go to Genesis and they save Spock. And in the course of 20 minutes of a 2-hour movie, right? And he gets all the characters that we wanted to see, and they get together, and that just forges the family, because that's what you want to see. Like, not that this needed to be Star Trek: The Search for Data or something, but you look at that, and then you look at Starfleet tells Picard, "You're crazy. Get the F out of here, Picard. Sheer effing hubris." And and then he goes down his escalator. He's all depressed. And then every episode, he slowly finds a character that can help him. Characters who we don't know, who we really don't care about, right? Because, I wish he would have called Riker, Worf, LaForge. And he's like, no, I can't risk their lives. Apparently he doesn't care about these people's lives, though.
Yeah.
So, I understand this was not going to be Next Generation continued, right? But I don't know. Like, I'm not really getting what I was looking for with this show, and that pains me to say. It does, because we were there at Star Trek Las Vegas, and Patrick Stewart comes out like, Jean-Luc Picard is back, and we're like, oh my god, right? It was amazing, right?
Yes, it was.
And I did not expect them to have the whole crew back and to do that. I didn't expect that, but I expected, I don't know, maybe Ambassador Picard or Admiral Riker or Worf is somewhere. Like, I expected these characters to exist instead of just saying their names and moving on, and not even, like, they're not even a factor. And I guess at some point we're going to see Riker and Troy. I'm still waiting. And that's kind of where I am with it, right? So is that fair? I don't know, but that's how I feel. So...
Yeah, and especially when you bring back and remind me that, the reason why Patrick Stewart came onto this show. And it's like... Okay, he understands the importance of this brighter future and the hope, because that's sort of what he told us. Like, Picard is needed now more than ever. Well, we need this hope more than ever. We don't need everyone damaged, everyone cynical, and then just going off and killing for vengeance. Like, we don't need that. We need the hope, and I want to get back to Utopia. Oh.
People are like, well, Star Trek has to reflect the times. I'm like, okay, like maybe in like production value and things like that, but not in like story. Like, the 1960s was not exactly Utopia, but Star Trek presented a future of like, we're going to get through. That's what Gene Roddenberry's vision, right? That's, I joke about how often people say that because I feel like they apply it way too often. But I think in this case, I will stand by it and say his vision for the future was we're all going to get over our differences, work together, overcome them, and then go out there and work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity, to quote Picard for many episodes of Next Gen and movies.
Episodes.
Right? And yet here we are. I'm like, well, hey guys, a lot of you out there might not like how the way the world is going right now, but don't worry, all your favorite characters from Star Trek don't like the way their world is going right now either. I'm like, well, that's not very inspiring.
I know.
So, I mean, I am a Star Trek fan. I know it doesn't sound like it listening to me talk about these episodes. I hope that I haven't brought a cloud over your podcast, Jeremy. Thank you for having me as a guest. And I hope I can come back and talk about something and be more positive next time. Because I do like Star Trek, despite what you might think after listening to me for the last hour.
It is all good, Zach. Oh my goodness. No, and when you come at it with a critical eye, and it is because you love it and you want it to, have meaning to you. And so I completely get it. And once I see Troy again, I will be back to my happy self.
Wasn't that funny when they're like, okay, Picard's coming back? I think did we not sit and do a special Earl Grey podcast, right, after they announced it? And we're like,
we did.
Well, what characters do you think are going to come back? And we're like, well, certainly not Data because he's dead. I'm like, yes. That's the only one. He's the only one that's come back, right?
Exactly.
Oh, but we got to see Picard in 7 of 9. Well, yeah, I guess that's cool, but I'd rather see Picard and Jurati,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So... maybe in season 2. So
yeah, well, we're gonna get Guinan.
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully we on broadcast television she was invited and appeared to accept. So hopefully we'll get Guinan back. And hopefully she'll like, hey, remember what I told you about all those disposable people? You guys should have listened to me.
Yeah, right. I know. That's why I can see that this synth, and we're not going to get answers on the attack on Mars and the ban on synths. Because we need Guinan and her wisdom to set us all straight.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what? I will say that it looks like Troy and Riker are at least happy together and have a family somewhere. So at least someone from the Next Gen era is living a good life. I guess they're on Beta Z. Like, I assumed... Well, I mean, that's my assumption now. I assume they were on Earth. Because in the trailer, he's like, well, thank you for not trying to talk me out of this. Like, I'm like, oh, it's at the beginning of his mission. He's going around saying goodbye to people because he thinks he might not come back. I don't know. This is just conjecture from the trailers. But we're like halfway through and we still haven't gotten that scene. So I don't know what the context of that is at all.
That was the same thing that I was thinking. It's like, yeah, he's going to talk to them, the pros and cons about him going off on this mission. Well, he's already gone. So what's there to talk about? Why does he need Counselor Troy?
I got it. That's the last scene of season 1. Is when he's going off on the next adventure. Because think about it, right? The last scene of season 1 of Discovery was the Enterprise showing up, right? Like, hey, fans, you like the Enterprise? Here it is, you know? And now it's like, hey, fans, you like Riker and Troy? Now, do I really think that's going to be the last scene? No. They would never show you the last scene in trailers that come out before the show starts. But I'm like, hey, I'm starting to get a little concerned. Because next week they're going to the Borg Cube, looks like. Right? So they're not going to be in that one. So that's 7, 8, leaves you 4 episodes left. Because I don't know where the show's going to go from here, to be honest. Because I thought it was going to all lead to Bruce Maddox and some answers. And now we're kind of past that. So I really have no idea what's coming next. And that's kind of exciting, but also kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
So, anyway, there you have it.
Well, listeners, please join us on our Facebook page at UFP Earth, where we would love to hear what you think of this episode. So, Zach, where can people find you when you are waiting for your utopia?
Well, you can find me personally on Twitter at MoronZach. That's MOOREONZACH. I'm also a host of Franchise Fatigue on our network here of the United Federation of Podcasts. And me and Brandon-Shea talk about movies, remakes, sequels, reboots, when franchises get fatigued. So you can find us here at UFP Earth on Twitter and then also on Facebook. And then also I am a host of Always Hold On to Smallville, a Superman podcast about that young Superman show. You can find us on Twitter at Always Smallville with 1 S.
Well, you can find me over on Trek FM, still hosting Earl Grey, which is about my favorite Star Trek, The Next Generation. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and you can find me on our Facebook UFP Earth page there. So, listeners, please go to iTunes and leave us a star rating and a written review that will help others to find our show. And let us know what you'd like for us to discuss if and when we get a chance to not cover new stuff, because we definitely want to hear your ideas and see what you would like us to talk about. Now, Zach, I don't know if you know that we are giving an iTunes review giveaway. So listeners, please get those in. We're going to be taking them from January to the end of March. And that is going to be the Enterprise D Bluetooth speaker.
Ooh, am I eligible for this?
No.
Oh, all right.
Nor are your family members.
So I got a birthday coming up in April, but all right, fair enough. So, I saw you guys post about that. That's a really cool looking Bluetooth speaker right there. So,
yeah,
you guys are doing some great work over here. So, if you guys are enjoying what you're hearing on All Good Things and want a Bluetooth speaker and want it to look like the Enterprise D, then you know where to go. So
that's right. Well, at this time, we want to thank our executive producers, the one and only Zach Moore, who
Thank you
have right here, Brandon-Shea Mutella, Ken Tripp, and Tony Robinson. They make this all possible. And again, thank you so much for having us on your network. And thank you for listening. We hope you will join us as we search out all good things. So what are you going to be, what's your next franchise on Franchise Fatigue?
So
because I'm going to complain a little bit, but I want to hear what you're covering next.
So we are currently covering Creep Show, which is a 1980s horror anthology series.
Were they movies?
Yes. So they're movies with different stories inside them. So it's an anthology movie with different. Some movies have 5 stories, some movies have 3, things like that. So that's what we're talking about right now, as of this recording. And then our next franchise is going to be Blade, the Wesley Snipes Vampire Hunter trilogy. And then after that, we're going to talk about Back to the Future.
Okay. Finally. Okay, listeners, I was such a big fan of Franchise Fatigue, and you were doing great. Mission Impossible, and then you just lost me, and you were covering all these movies that I have no interest in.
We were doing great with our first
franchise,
and ever since then, Amy has
everything. I'm
out.
like, nope, I'm not listening. I'm so sorry, and I love you guys to death. And so it's frustrating that I don't get to hear you and your takes on movies that have somewhat of an interest to me.
Well, it's about variety, Amy. You know, I mean,
variety. No, you have not been doing variety.
We all over the place. We did Toy Story.
Oh yeah, I did listen to those.
Mm-hmm. Godfather.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did actually watch The Godfather because of you.
Okay, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Free exposure to other franchises.
But then you do like all these horror things. You did some Western and then
Jaws.
Saw.
You remember Jaws?
Did you?
One of the greatest films of all time.
Jaws. Yeah, no interest in that.
Okay,
don't tell Ken Tripp.
Only one of the greatest films of all time. Ken Tripp's absolutely
don't tell Ken Tripp.
Film. Terminator. You never liked Terminator?
Haven't seen a one of them.
Well, that a perfect reason to watch him because Brandon and I talked about him. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to look for Back to the Future because I enjoy those.
Back to the Future coming April 2020.
April. Okay.
So you can just turn off your subscription until then, Amy. So
I have. No, I see when they come up and I'm like, is this a movie? Nope.
Amy is swiping left.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.